Heading into 2025, Ferrari were hoping to carry the momentum from their 2024 title fight with them. They had won races, taken podiums, showed sustained pace, and had taken McLaren to the last race of the season. This was it. This was Ferrari's return to the top step of Formula One. Well, that didn't happen. Obviously.
I am stupid.
Pretty much everything that could go wrong did go wrong for the Scuderia. Ferrari went from genuine title contenders in 2024 to watching their historic rivals McLaren cruise to a dominant constructors title in 25, and for good measure adding a driver's title alongside it, just to make it that much harder for the team in red. So what actually happened this year? How did it all go so wrong? Sure, that could be summed up by just saying, it's Ferrari, but it's got to be deeper than that, right? If we're going to be totally honest, Ferrari's first major failure didn't even happen in 2025. It happened in February of 2024, when they chose to swap Carlos Sainz for Lewis Hamilton. At first, it seemed like a stroke of marketing genius. This was the biggest driver announcement of the last decade. Headlines were everywhere. The internet had pretty much shut down.
Lewis Hamilton is going to be leaving Mercedes and joining Ferrari.
But once the initial shock had worn off, the reception became less favourable. It came out that Ferrari had been deliberately keeping Sainz in the dark about his contract negotiations, constantly delaying meetings and pushing the signing date back, only for him to find out through a phone call with a friend that he was being let go. This is just classic Ferrari communication. And yes, Lewis does bring vast amount of experience with him. 7 titles, 102 wins, 202 podiums. But Ferrari's senior leadership team saw commercial benefits over driver pedigree. Lewis driving at Ferrari? Well, you don't have to be a Wall Street banker to know there's money to be made there.
Your profit on a mere $6,000 investment would be upwards of $60,000.
But the cost. Carlos Sainz, a driver with a naturally high performance ceiling, raw speed, and critically, someone who was deeply involved with the engineering side of the car. He fit the team perfectly. He bought into the project. He was rooted in Ferrari's culture. He was always going to be difficult to replace, even if you're Lewis Hamilton. 2025 was always going to be a difficult season for Lewis. He has expressed on numerous occasions that he isn't a fan of the ground effect cars, so combine that with a brand new team and a brand new platform, the transition was always going to be difficult. But just how difficult? While Ferrari's driver drama was causing chaos off of the track, the design teams in Maranello were laying the groundwork for chaos on it. Loic Serra, Ferrari's chassis and technical director, proclaimed that 99% of the SF25 would be different from its predecessor. Immediately, fans and analysts were wary. Ferrari had a title-challenging package in 2025, so why the hell would you change 99% of the car in the last year of a regulation cycle? Especially when we've seen time and time again that in the final year of a regulation cycle, the performance convergence can lead to a tighter field. Again, they seem more concerned with making grandiose statements about car design and how either revolutionary or different their design is from other constructors, rather than refining their platform. And to add to this, it screams of a team that truly didn't know how to further develop their 2024 car. So they tore up the rulebook and hoped whatever they eventually threw at the wall would stick. Looking at the 25 car, it was indeed a full concept shift. They switched to a pull rod front suspension setup, and claims from Serra stated that this would be better for aerodynamic optimization. A fair claim, if an unproven one. The car's wheelbase was also lengthened slightly, leaning towards a more Mercedes-style profile. The justification for this was that it would help manage the front wheel wake, as well as reduce the negative effects this may have on the leading edge of the floor. Again, a seemingly positive improvement, but yet to be proven. There were smaller tweaks as well. The side pod inlets were enlarged to improve cooling, and a larger gully was added along the top side of the side pod to push more air over the rear beam wing and diffuser when running the car at lower ride heights. All of this was a massive gamble, and something Ferrari didn't need to hinge their championship hopes on. Would it all land on red come the end of 2025? I don't think so. If Ferrari's driver shakeup and car overhaul wasn't going to derail their season, spoiler, they were. Then Ferrari's trackside operations were going to try their best. And they did. We didn't even get one weekend of hope. They came in swinging in Australia, round one, and that set the tone for the rest of the season. During the closing stages of the race, the rain had started and was heavy enough to need to swap the intermediate tyres. Ferrari, in their infinite wisdom, stayed out after a majority of the grid had pitted. The only reason they did this was to seemingly have both cars running 1 and 2 for Lewis's debut. However, this backfired and lasted all of one corner before Lando caught up on the inters to the back of Charles and overtook him on the exit of turn 1. They brought the cars in that same lap and fell down the order, eventually finishing 8th and 10th. These kinds of misguided strategy calls are nothing new. It's a persistent theme in the way Ferrari go racing and always has been for well over a decade. From Raikkonen's wet tyre strategy call in Malaysia 2009.
Are they going to get it right today in the race?
No.
Massa's fuel hose error in Singapore 2008.
Oh no! That's a big mistake, Massa's gone!
It's about as synonymous with Ferrari as Schumacher is now, and it's just embarrassing. By the next race in China, the car looked like it had actual pace. Lewis took pole for the sprint and won by a comfortable margin. However, as the flag fell on the Sunday, the two cars finished just 5th and 6th, exactly where they had started. But the fun had just started. At the post-race scrutineering, when both Charles and Lewis were disqualified, Charles for being 1 kg underweight and Lewis for excessive plank wear. Two separate infringements in the same race is not bad luck or chance. It's a systematic failure of trackside operations. When Fred Vasseur joined, people had hoped he'd stabilise Ferrari. And yes, he has improved some aspects of the team, but overseeing a back-to-back technical disqualification, that's a race team that is still miles away from Red Bull, McLaren and Mercedes in operational efficiency. These are just some of the headline examples. The full list from this year is much too long, but if these two examples show anything, it's that unless Ferrari stop missing obvious strategy calls, fix their internal communication issues, and stop pretending these problems don't exist, they are not fighting for championships, no matter how fast their car is. Errors like these will never go unpunished by the likes of Red Bull, Mercedes and McLaren when the pressure rises. Although it's not all doom and gloom, there is a silver lining to this massive storm cloud. They did at least secure the DHL fastest pit stop championship. We can all smile about that. But to be serious, this was one aspect of their trackside operations that was very solid all year, so I will give them their flowers here, especially when you consider how bad they used to be.
I thought we had one when the race started, he's saying. Well, this is ludicrous, this is
now we're going to have a committee meeting about it. Stick it on and send him out.
To stay in the championship fight over a long season, a team needs at the very least two things. 1. A fast baseline car, and 2. A clear and structured upgrade plan. It would seem Ferrari had neither of these in 2025. In fact, it actually looked like Ferrari were relying on external factors to improve the car performance rather than implementing effective upgrades. In the lead up to the Spanish Grand Prix, the FIA were going to be clamping down more on the controversial flexi wings. Ferrari were relying on this to make progress compared to the other top teams. Leclerc commented that he believed that the clampdown would play a large role in potentially improved form for Ferrari. He implied that McLaren and Mercedes specifically may be performing better by using flexi elements that still passed FIA static tests. This single comment shows a team that had no understanding of the platform they were working from and were hedging their bets on their rivals breaking the rules to gain performance. It just felt like another excuse in a long line of excuses as to why Ferrari were falling short of their top rivals in every aspect. When the new clampdown arrived in Spain, it had a zero to negligible effect on Mercedes and McLaren, which was to no surprise, as those two platforms were inherently good. Ferrari's bet hadn't paid off, and they were once again left scratching their heads as to why the car was so comparatively slow. For Imola, the Scuderia had brought a new aerodynamic upgrade in hopes of resolving the car's underlying flaws. The package was supposed to help the car's overall downforce, with the real focus being on improving the car's chronic lack of rear downforce, which caused instability, an issue that particularly affected Lewis Hamilton, especially under braking. In short, when the package arrived, it wasn't a great improvement. The car still appeared slow, and it wasn't the silver bullet that maybe the Tifosi had been waiting for. The car was flawed, and there was a sense of inevitability around the team that 2025 was going to be another write-off. By mid-season, Ferrari had been designing a massive rear suspension overhaul due for Belgium, in a bid to gain some performance and address the instability that had been plaguing their drivers for much of the early season. Although, if you've been listening up until now, it will come to no surprise that this huge upgrade was dead on arrival. There was no measurable jump in performance compared to the front-running McLaren. Hamilton commented at the Belgian Grand Prix weekend that the car felt the same as before. Much of Ferrari's upgrades this season amounted to nothing by the end, and it's a worrying thing to see in a team that are still talking about wanting to fight for titles. This also reiterates that Ferrari still struggle to understand the very car that they themselves have built. Ferrari are legendary for their communication in modern F1, and not for good reason.
I have the seat full of water, like full of water.
Must be the water.
Let's add that to the words of wisdom.
This year was no exception. Lewis Hamilton would unfortunately bear the brunt of this when he was assigned Riccardo Adami as his race engineer. The two had a frosty start to their relationship. What was initially believed to be a language barrier was quickly explained away by Adami just not being particularly good at his job. There were countless instances where Adami did not respond, gave Lewis incorrect information, or was just slow in informing Lewis of approaching cars.
Are they still nearly a minute ahead?
Medium and McLaren's on hard, lapping 16, very close to each other fighting.
You're not answering the question.
Okay, one.
Stop talking to me while I'm in freaking battle, man. Jeez. In the braking zone, you're talking to me.
We need to recharge for attack.
The most recent of these errors occurred in Abu Dhabi, where Lewis was thanking the team at the end of the race, only for Adami to tell him he was discussing something else after Lewis asked for clarification if he had heard his radio message.
Long season, guys. That's it, your kindness. I'm grateful for all the hard work. I'll always fight for you guys. Always. That's it. You get that message. It's the one time you don't reply.
You got it, yeah, we were talking.
During the race, Lewis was not informed of his track limit violations until he was one away from a penalty.
Pay attention, track limits turn 1. We had the second strike. From lap time 29.
No, when I got the first one, I have shit now.
It wasn't only on-track communication that was an issue for Ferrari this year. John Elkann, Ferrari's chairman, got himself into hot water due to comments he made after the Brazilian Grand Prix. He said his drivers need to talk less and focus on driving. These kinds of comments speak of a special kind of arrogance that is rife amongst the top brass at Ferrari. Interesting when you consider Elkann was taking personal responsibility for the signing of Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari's senior leadership team are far too involved in the management of the race team. They see it like a business. If they truly want the team to start winning again, there needs to be a bigger separation between the Ferrari business and the Ferrari F1 team, because it's clear that constant meddling from suits is not delivering results on track. In conclusion, the 2025 season was a complete disaster for Ferrari. Realistically, they should have been up there with McLaren fighting for the title, but instead through bad engineering decision, both in terms of car design and upgrade paths, chaotic and unnecessary driver lineup changes, and the operational shortcomings that really could only be fitting of the legendary Scuderia. Yes, the failure of the 25 season can be summed up as more than just, that's Ferrari. But really, when you take a step back and look at it, have they done anything this year that makes you think otherwise? But anyway, next year's our year, right? And there you have it, guys. That's my take on the situation of Ferrari. If you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you have any of your own thoughts on this, please put them in the comments below. And if you want to see more from me and the Rev House team, consider subscribing.